Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a Sporting Blizzard podcast where we're doing a mock draft where we have all but two picks decided so far. And as always, I'm joined with my father, Tony. Say hello to everyone, Tony.
Happy afternoon to everybody.
So, he's going to be doing the first pick. I'm going to be doing the second pick. We're going to be rotating here. We have different philosophies on football. We have different thoughts of different players at each position. So it's going to be interesting, and we are doing no trades. So don't expect any trades because trades I don't want to do until we're closer in on draft cycle after free agency because they're just so unpredictable. Even when you have more knowledge on the situation, they're so unpredictable. They're impossible to predict at this point in the cycle. But let's get going, and you are on the clock, the Chicago Bears.
Well, I'm just going to start this off by saying this is if they were to stay in this position, it's kind of a no-brainer, and they're going to take Jalen Carter.
Any thoughts about going Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson or Myles Murphy? Just a more premier position at edge than defense tackle.
I think that this edge class is by far more deep than the tackle class, and getting a premier tackle, look what they were able to do in Indianapolis when they got DeForest Buckner. So I think that would help their defense a lot, and they can scheme some pass rush and things, but it's a lot harder to scheme interior defense.
So the Texans here. I'm going to take Bryce Young. He's the best quarterback in this class. He's the best passer. I feel like he's I don't want to say smartest, but best arena defense. Maybe the most football knowledge of the quarterbacks in this class, in my opinion. And he has handled pressure better than any one of them as well. So give me Bryce Young here with the Texans. The Arizona Cardinals are on the clock, and man, they're still looking for a head coach. So are you going to use this pick to entice any potential coaches?
Well, here's the thing with Arizona. If I'm being honest, and if it was a perfect world, I would be drafting a quarterback. But looking at the sport track to see Kyler's salary and the situation there, they can't really get out of that for 2 more years. So we're just going to be grounded, and we're going to take Will Anderson. And my reasoning for that is, everybody's got him marked as the second or one of the 2 blue chip talents. I have my own opinions on who I would take ahead of him, but the consensus is that if Jalen goes off the board first, Anderson will go off the board second there.
Okay, well, here we are with the Colts, and the Colts are getting the second best quarterback in this class, and I do think they're going to be the team heavily trying to trade up Chicago to probably get their guy, but C.J. Stroud's a very solid number 2. I have more concerns about him than Bryce Young. He didn't feel pressure out as well as Bryce did at Alabama compared to Ohio State. But that's also due to the fact that Ohio State has potentially 2 first-round tackles. You really don't have to deal with pressure much, so when it happens to you, it's kind of brand new. And it'll be interesting to see how the Colts address their offensive line to protect C.J. Stroud and make sure he is comfortable to make all the throws he can.
There we go. And I get the beloved. So this is pretty simple. We're going to take Tyree Wilson. And as I had said ahead or on the previous pick, I actually like Wilson better than I like Anderson. Physically, his tools seem, to be just as good so far as the speed, but he's bigger, he's stronger. And that worries me a little bit about Anderson. The guy's got such long arms, even if he's held out at the tackle, he could still probably bring down the quarterback. So I'm pretty excited about this pick.
He played the wrong sport. He's got to build for a basketball body.
True.
So here I am with the Lions, and the Lions could go a couple ways, and this is what makes them maybe the most fascinating team in the top 10. Because the top 5 picks, they stay as they are, it's going to go defense tackle, in my opinion, quarterback, edge, quarterback, edge. Then the Lions, okay, what are they going to do? Because you could make the case they take a quarterback here with Anthony Richardson or Will Levis both being developmental. You can sit them behind Jared Goff. But this team played really, really good down the stretch. This team can win, and you need a playmaker. You need someone to make plays for you on the defensive side of the ball as much as you do on the offense side of the ball. Their offense has a lot of talent. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a receiver on the up and up, very talented. DeAndre Swift, when healthy, is a dangerous running back, and Jamal Williams is a nice number 2. They do have a need at tight end after trading away TJ Hawkinson, but this is a very deep tight end class. This is maybe the deepest tight end class in the past 10 20 years. I don't know how far back you have to go, but it's a really deep class. So offense really isn't an issue to address here at number 6. So we're going to look at defense. In a perfect world, I think the Lions get Tyree Wilson. I think he's the perfect playmaker to put on the opposite side of Hutchinson. He has long reach. If Justin Fields extends plays, gets around the edge, he can get a hand on him and slow him down. He's also pretty good stopping the run when you got guys like Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones in your division. So edge could be an option here. Myles Murphy is very possible, but I think they have a bigger need at cornerback, and I think the best cornerback in this class is Devin Witherspoon. So I'm going to take him here. And the reason I take Devin Witherspoon is not only is he a great cornerback in this class, he's my favorite, he's a Dan Campbell guy. He is physical. He'll press man you. He'll come and hit you. He's a guy Dan Campbell would love, and which is why I think he's a perfect fit in Detroit.
So the Raiders are on the clock, and supposedly they need a quarterback because
and a head coach.
Because Carr is going out of town. They also need offensive line, and they need some definite help in the defensive area as well.
And running back potentially.
And running back potentially as well. I just don't feel Will Levis here. To me, he doesn't seem like a McDaniels type of guy. So I'm going to look more along the offensive line because they have one offensive lineman that's worth a darn, and they could use a lot more. So I think I'm going to go with Paris Johnson for them. Talking about one of the tackles from Ohio State that's going to go in the first round, and he just went off the board at pick 7.
So here I am with the Atlanta Falcons, and this is interesting because I don't know what they think of Desmond Ridder. I don't. I personally have other thoughts of Desmond Ridder. I wasn't a fan of him last cycle, but a lot can change in a year. A lot can change when he gets to the NFL. With what we saw from him, nothing made me go, well, you can't play him. He's that bad, but nothing also made me go, well, he's elite. Like, he was there. And I'd argue quarterback would probably be the best thing for the Falcons. Well, the top 2 guys are off the board here. So you'd be looking at Levis, who's developmental, and Anthony Richardson, who's developmental. I like Richardson more because I think he's a better athlete. He has more of the physical tools. But I don't think either quarterback is a top 10 pick if I'm doing a draft. So let's look at other positions. Well, Atlanta has issues on defense. They've had them for, it feels like, a decade now, since the Super Bowl run or whatever. They've had issues on defense. There's a couple interesting guys here. Myles Murphy, he's a good edge. Do you want to go him? Brise, he's projected, and this is something that, depending on the person, they either love him or they don't. But as much as I think they need help on defense, I want to get Arthur Smith the right tool set for his offense. His offense in Tennessee was run the ball, grind it out. You got Derrick Henry. Obviously, the Falcons don't have a Derrick Henry, but they got a nice running back in Tyson Algier and a good change of pace guy with Cordero Patterson. Let's strengthen the offense line and take Peter Skronsky and build up that offensive line to run the ball more efficiently.
I think Arthur would love that. So the Carolina Panthers are now on the clock, and new coach Frank Reich is like, well, we're going to take a quarterback. So now it's just a matter of, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. And I think what Levis is a little closer than Richardson just because he's had some things. So with as temperamental as Tepper has seemed to be, I'm going to go with Levis there. thinking that maybe it's not as hard to get him geared up, because no matter what, I think that whoever's drafted here at the quarterback position is going to be playing at some point in time this year. So,
Yeah. So the Eagles, now, they are very happy. They have a top 10 pick. They're in the Super Bowl. Everything's turning up great for them. What do we do with this offseason? They have a lot of free agents on the front seven. They have a pretty important free agent in James Bradbury. You have needs on defense. This is a team that's probably going to have to rebuild its defense a bit in this draft and in the offseason. It's very interesting to see what directions they go. Myles Murphy, pretty good pass rusher. Breeze could pair him up with Jordan Davis. Got a guy like Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., Cam Smith. You also got Lucas Van Ness, who is someone who has been rising up the board for a lot of people. But when it comes to it, you got to take the best player on the board here because this is a luxury pick. This is not a pick the Eagles were going to have originally. This was going to be the Saints' pick until last draft cycle when the Saints traded to them. So let's take the luxury and take the best player on the board in Myles Murphy.
Interesting. So you do like Murphy then better than, say, Luke Van Ness?
I have not watched enough Van Ness to say I like him to be a top 10 pick, which is why you're not going to see me take him. Until I watch him, I can't say for certain if he's worth it or not, because I'm speaking and guessing. I'd rather not guess on here because I'd rather speak on the players I know about. When I get to Van Ness, this could be a different story in a week or two from now. I might be like, yeah, Van Ness is the 10th pick. But as we sit today, I haven't watched enough of him to say for certain if he's a 10th pick.
Well, he's a defensive lineman, and so I, of course, since I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan, and they need about 15 defensive linemen. So I have.
And how many do you need when you play the 49ers?
About 20. My concern with Murphy is that he doesn't seem fluid. He just bull rushes, and when you get into the NFL, if you try to bull rush, some of these tackles, you're going to end up on your keister. So he kind of worries me. I haven't seen anything but a bull rush from him, so it's a little concerning.
That's fair. But again, I just don't want to speak on someone I haven't watched because I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak on him.
No, perfect. The Tennessee Titans are on the clock, and they need a lot of help. They had the worst rated offensive line in the NFL last year. And that goes with a lot since you also had Derrick Henry running the ball, and he had an amazing year. So then it's just a matter of where are we going to go with this? How can I get 3 offensive linemen with 1 pick? And you already told me that wasn't allowable. So I think I'm just going to take Broderick Jones here. And I was kind of wondering, I think Broderick Jones definitely has more upside, more potential. He's big, he's fat. He hasn't allowed any sacks. Anton Harrison might be a little bit better in the run game, but he also needs to work on his passing game a little bit. So we're just going to go with Jones.
So you told me this yesterday. Do you think it's a realistic possibility that Titans trade up for a quarterback?
I don't, at least not that high. That was just something that I saw on Twitter. I just don't know if there's security enough there to be going all in on that and losing it, because there's been a lot of guff about some of the picks that they've taken over the past couple of years. And if you take a big trade up and it doesn't work and you've, wasted a ton of capital for no reward, I don't see that going well.
Okay. Well, here I am with the Texans, and we just hired D'Amico Ryans, who I'm stoked about. Texans fans looked really stoked. Everyone seems to be happy about this for the Texans. And I'm blanking on his name. Who was the safety of the San Francisco 49ers had that was really good this year? Something Ward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his first name. I apologize. He is a free agent, so it's possible they do sign him. The Texans could bring him in. But I argue, why not go younger? Why not get a safety in the building that's young, that D'Amico can work with and can possibly become an all-pro back there to team up with Jalen Petrie. I'm going to take Brian Branch here. I think the Texans have some needs, yes, but they have needs everywhere. And I'd argue taking a player that can transform the back end of your defense is huge. They already have Jalen Petrie. They have Devin Singletary. They invested in that last year. Let's keep on investing in it. Let's give them something different. You're in the division with the Jaguars, who have Trevor Lawrence, who is looking phenomenal. The Colts are going to be taking a quarterback here very high. We don't know how good he'll be, but if they have the right developmental staff, he could be a problem for many years to come. You got to take a guy to help on the back end, and Brian Branch can do that, and D'Amico Ryans has had success with great safeties.
Are you thinking to put him directly in safety, or are you thinking about putting him into the slot early on to learn what he can do?
So I'm okay with either or, and I would default to D'Amico Ryans here because he knows a lot more about defense than I do.
That's fair enough.
I think, and I had this thought process that maybe it's even better to have a great nickel instead of a great outside guy, because teams more and more like to use the slot. They like to target the slot and take advantage of it. Teams with great nickels tend to have success. The Chiefs are in the Super Bowl because they have a great nickel. The Eagles are in the Super Bowl because they have a great nickel. Bengals, they have a great nickel. The 49ers have a great defense. Just, I can't point out one spot. The teams that made the conference championship games all have a great nickel. So if you want to move Branch to nickel and say, we have something there, let's keep it there. Let's force guys to go on the outside. Let's get some outside corners that can make play on the ball. Got Jalen Petrie. Why not?
No, I like it. I like it a lot. So the Jets are on the clock, and the Jets are not going to take a quarterback here.
They can't.
So, no, I don't think that they have the time to develop that quarterback. So I'm just kind of being tongue-in-cheek there. And I've seen a lot of mocks where, they get a wide receiver here. I think they've got a lot of talent there. And so it comes to the point where we're one of their areas of huge need. And I think it was on the offensive line. And I'm kind of torn between two different guys. One was Cody Mock, and the other guy is Darnell Wright. I like them both, and I thought both of them did really well during the Senior Bowl. Wright just did, tackle, where Cody was tackle, guard, center. And I think that kind of versatility makes him a day one pick. And so I'm just going to pick him right there.
So what position do you have him play? Do you have him play tackle, guard, or center?
I start him off and, figure out who's the best at what position and let him work there. If I don't think Mekhi Becton, if they even keep him, is a tackle. I think you move him into guard. He doesn't have to move as much with, let's face it, with his legs. He's too big to be kicking out, and I think that's where some of his problems are. So if you put him in at guard and put Matt in at tackle, I mean, that's a pretty formidable side.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to take a quick second and call PFF out on this. Needs QB for the Patriots. Listen, I'm not the biggest Mac Jones fan. He'll tell you for it. I wasn't a fan of him in the draft. I will just say this straight up. If you are blaming Mac Jones for last year's offense, you're an idiot. I don't think I need to add anything more there.
Nope, I think that was pretty eloquent.
So here we are with the Patriots, and there's a couple guys here. Joey Porter Jr. fits. He's a press man corner. Belichick likes those guys. Brian Brzee, he feels like someone Belichick would like to get his hands on and just mold him into the perfect guy he would want. From everything I've heard, Van Ness would be a guy here for New England. Like I said, I haven't watched him, so I'm not picking him. Then we go to the receivers. The Patriots clearly have a need a receiver. But I'd argue they'd be better off serving that in the second round. I think they have more pressing holes on the cornerbacks than receivers, which is why we're going to take the cornerback that's a press man in Joey Porter Jr.
I like it. So I have a question. What are your thoughts? Did you entertain tight end at all there?
So I would, and personally I'd go Dalton Kincaid over Mayer. And the reason why is I think Kincaid is more of a modern day tight end. Because you look at him, and I think Dan Jeremiah put it perfectly. He's a lot like Travis Kelce coming out of Cincinnati. And I'm not saying he'll be Travis Kelce. I'm very, very, very careful about saying that. He has the same build. He has athletic ability, and he is a nice, reliable guy. The thing is, I want to keep Bill Belichick happy if I'm the GM, and he is a GM in real life, so he knows how to make himself happy. I'm going to give him a guy he would like to work with more. And here's the thing. They have a second round of the draft. You can get a tight end in this class in a deep class. It's not like there's one tight end worth taking and then it falls off. No. There's, 4, 5, 6 guys? It's a very deep class, and you can address it later on.
That makes a lot of sense. So you look on Green Bay's needs and wide receiver, tight end, edge, and linebacker. I'd also say that with their salary cap situation, they just need youth at a ton of positions because they're overpaying for a ton of positions. So tackle would be one where they could use
Corner.
I also think running back would be a position. And no, I'm not taking a running back here. Just calm down. Take a blood pressure pill. Relax.
No. I would like it the Packers took a running back here because you know how hard I'd laugh.
Well, so I think I'm going to go with somebody that helps them on the offensive side, but he can help with the line. Personally, I understand what you're saying about Dalton Kincaid. I just think that Mayer, he's that guy that he's just a little bit better at everything right now. And he's pretty polished. So
you're taking Michael Mayer?
Yeah.
And this is not me saying Mayer's a slouch. I like Mayer a lot. I just like Kincaid more. It's like 1A, 1B. I don't have a problem with Mayer going high. I prefer Kincaid, but that's just preference. But here we are with the Washington football team and their god-awful name, which I still refuse to say, even though I will slip up and say it time again. They have a couple needs. They say guard and center is needed, which I do agree, but you can get some guys later on. This team needs a quarterback. And there's one quarterback here that is very fascinating because all throughout the college football season, it was Anthony Richardson's Cam Newton. Anthony Richardson's Cam Newton. He's Cam Newton. He's the size. He's big. He's strong. He's fast. Has a cannon of an arm. He's also as inaccurate as Cam Newton was. And you can say Cam Newton had a much better college career. Absolutely. That Auburn offense was not good that year he was there, but he won national championship with them. I'd also say the Gators had a lot of really, really rough receivers, especially when their starters got hurt and they were down to their 4th and 5th string guys that have transferred. And from everything it sounds like, they're happy they got rid of them because they brought in a very good class. Now, Richardson had a much better protection, I think Will Levis did. I think the Gators' offense line was really good, and they helped keep him upright. But there's this thing with Anthony Richardson that it's potential. If everything clicks and he becomes what he can be, is it fair to say he will be remembered as the best quarterback in this class? If everyone clicks at the top 4 quarterbacks, he has the most tools that he would be the most dangerous.
There's a lot of ifs there, just saying.
Well, I know, but I'm just going here. But the main reason I'm having Anthony Richardson go here is Ron Rivera won with Cam Newton. He knows what these type of quarterbacks are. Highly athletic, big build, can make the plays with his legs, but also isn't the most accurate passer, but can launch it deep and get those big plays. It's something Ron Rivera's won with in the past, and I think he can win with it in the future.
Do you think that Riverboat Ron is on the hot seat right now? Because there is talk about coming out of there right now that he's on the hot seat, and gambling with a rookie quarterback that's going to have a lot of time developing might not be the best bet. Your thoughts on that?
So you can go with that, and I'm going to say this now. I don't think Washington will have the 16th overall pick. I think it'll be in the Baltimore Ravens pick, and I think Lamar Jackson will be their quarterback next year. That's what I truly believe. But I do not think Riverboat Ron should be on the hot seat. He's done an amazing job with a big dysfunctional organization that's been. He's won a division title with them. With Alex Smith, who I am a fan of, on one leg, he won a division title with. That defense, it was hurt. Chase Young's finally going to be healthy again entering the upcoming year. They were playing good football. They were at one point in the playoff picture. You look at that team. You look at the quarterback situation they have. I think Heineke's a good backup. He's not an NFL starter. Carson Wentz, I have no idea what to think of him anymore. But they got Scary Terry. They got some tools. Could you say going with the veteran quarterback's a smarter route? Absolutely. Derek Carr would be perfect there. I think Lamar Jackson will be the pick, though, because I think they fit him the best. And Dan Snyder, he's known to going for it. He's not afraid to pay the big bucks. And you can say he's about to sell. Well, guess what? He pays him 1 year contract, give a big contract extension, win some stuff, sell the team. You don't have to pay Lamar's full contract. So if Lamar does get hurt at the end of his time, it's not Dan Snyder's problem. And he knows that.
No, it's fair enough. Fair enough. So we have Anthony Richardson going there. Perfect. All right. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock. And I had a little bit of time to to go over this while we were having that little debate. So we're just going to go with Cam Smith for pick him up. He's basically the next highest rated DB on the board for me. And they need definitely one, and depending upon the contract negotiations, they may need two cornerbacks going into this year. So he would definitely fill the need for one of them.
So I'm going to ask you, with rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett, who did suffer some concussions, got hit a good bit, would you consider O-line, or do you have confidence someone will be there at pick 32 they could take?
Well, I think that there will be definite O-line help later on. And I know everybody says this cornerback draft is really deep as well. But I think it separates actually right now, since Cam Smith has gone off the board. I think the next level is a little bit further down the board. Whereas people can say that, Osiris Torrance is the consensus number one. At the Senior Bowl, at the in all of the All-Star games this weekend, there were a lot of guards that showed up. And so I think that they can address those, whether it be pick 32 or, because they have two picks in the second round.
Two top 50, three top 50 picks overall.
Yeah. So, or they can, even address it later on. I think that the guard depth in this draft is at least 5 rounds deep. And yeah, there's going to be fall off, but not everybody can be an overall number one pick, and so you have to try to piecemeal your team together with where you best need. And if they could potentially be losing both of their cornerbacks, then getting one that I think is pretty much locked down means that you can get somebody later on to address that and not have to worry as much. You can scheme to help one side. You can't scheme to help both.
Okay, there's just one thing I need to correct. They will have, no matter what, one of their starting outside corners, and Levi Wallace coming back. He has signed a contract, and they like him a lot. So he will be coming back. But I get with what you're saying. My next question is, you said there's a drop-off after Cam Smith. What are your thoughts on Christian Gonzalez then? Because a lot of people have him as maybe the best corner in this class.
I think he's a tools guy. I think he's got all of the tools, but you didn't see it in his play all the time. His consistency is not there like Cam Smith or Witherspoon or Porter. You know, he's great, and I get it, and he's fast and he's long, and I'm just not sure that overall he's going to be the best. I mean, we say it all the time, you know, oh, he's got all the intangibles. But sometimes the intangibles aren't all that it takes to be a great football player.
That's fair. So here we have the Lions.
Again.
Yeah. Yep. This pick is very easy for me. I'm going to throw a surprise here, but when you watch him, it's not a surprise. Give me Drew Sanders from Arkansas. And the reason why, the Lions need some linebackers. They got a nice gem in Malcolm Rodriguez, and if you watch Hard Knocks last year, could not help but fall in love with him. They need more linebacker help. They need more depth on the defensive side of the ball because they did struggle with the run game last year. They did struggle with some coverage. We already addressed Devin Witherspoon. We got a number 1 corner for them. If Okudah comes back and can be a number 2, great. But we also need to address linebackers because linebacker was a big hole for the Lions last year, and take the best one on the board, and Drew Sanders.
Fair enough. Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock, and they need a lot. With the retirement of Brady, they need help along the offensive line pretty much everywhere. Their linebackers are, you know, kind of suspect right now. You don't know what it's going to be with them. And, you know, they're going to need some help on the D end as well, on the D line as well. So, and in the secondary. All that being said, one of the things when you talk about Tampa Bay, and has been for the last few years, their interior defensive front. And so Vita Vea, but then their linebackers. And so I think they're going to go with – sorry, I just blanked out. So I think they're going to go linebacker here, and they're going to take six. He sideline to sideline. He's fast. He hits hard, which they're going to need. They are so far over the cap. They're eating up half of next year's cap. And so they're going to have to let one of the linebackers go. So they're going to take Trenton Simpson.
Okay. So here I'm with the Seahawks, and I have a feeling at this point we're going to have to do Captain America in the elevator to hold Pete Carroll back from taking Bijan Robinson.
You know, he's pretty happy with K9, so we might be okay in the first round.
Are you sure? Are you sure he's not like, I want him? Get him. No, Seattle has some issues. Interior line is an issue. I don't think we can address defensive line enough based off what we saw for San Francisco. And I could argue that maybe the guy they want to take is off the board because Drew Sanders would fit their need at linebacker with Jordan Brooks being out and not knowing if Cody Barton's going to be back long term, and Trenton Simpson as well. But they're not there. So what else does Seattle have needs at? Well, again, you cannot draft enough defensive linemen for them. I could argue they could maybe use some more depth at corner, but that's something you can address later in the draft. Their pass rush hasn't been great, but we already addressed out Tyree Wilson. You got to look at interior on both sides of the football here, in my opinion. Brise is on the board. Brise is a very developmental pick. He has had some issues. I believe it was a kidney issue or something along those lines that held him out of Clemson last year. And he is very talented. And I know I can practically hear it in his head screaming, take Lucas Van Ness right now. But I haven't watched him, so I can't take him. They're good at tackle. But man, I can't let see this man fall. I am a Gator fan admittedly, so I love Osiris Torrance probably more than most people. I remember how bad the Gator line was for many, many years. and he came in and plugging him in at guard, it just changed the offensive line. They were so much better. So give me O'Cyrus Torrence here to Seattle to replace Gabe Jackson at left guard and just keep that youth movement on the line going. Make sure it's young. So when they eventually do have to move off Geno, because he isn't a spring chicken, he is a little older, they have a little line in place for a rookie quarterback when that time comes.
Actually, I was not screaming for Van Ness. In my mock drafts recently, I have been taking O'Cyrus Torrence. I've been trading down a couple spots to get Torrence, but in all actuality, that's who I've been getting.
So before we get to the Chargers, and as you see here, it says forfeited. You would have had the Miami Dolphins pick here originally. What would you have done with the Dolphins pick?
So that's kind of interesting because they need offensive line help. They need secondary help as well. I would have been torn. I probably would have gone Christian Gonzalez here, and see what would have happened there. They could also use, safety help. So Antonio Johnson or,
my man Skinner
or Jamie Robinson. I don't think Skinner, that defensive style, plays well. He's honestly, he's going to fit, in my opinion, in more of a single high safety where he can come down to the box. He's not super great in coverage, so he's going to need to spend more time on the line of scrimmage. So I think that he'll have to be in one of those defenses that uses the single high, and they play their second safety closer to the line.
Okay.
All right. So since I don't have to make that pick, we're on the clock with the Chargers, and it's funny. I think this might be the team that I've seen the most varied amount of draft picks, in the mock drafts that I've seen, because I've seen defensive help, I've seen wide receivers, I've seen running backs, tight ends, tackles, guards. Pretty much for a team that's got a lot of talent, it looks like they need a lot. They have a lot of holes as well. I am, and I've done this in previous mock drafts where I've taken Bijan here with, the salary cap, what it is. And I think that, you use him for a year and then it's just his thing. But I'm going to go Jordan Addison here. They need somebody with some speed to press. Mike Williams is a jump ball guy. Keenan Allen is getting older, and sadly, he seems to be falling apart. He hasn't had a lot of injuries for the last year. Early on in his career, he had a ton, and then he got healthy.
It's funny how, as you're saying, he got hurt early in his career, was healthy for the middle bit, and now is dealing with injuries. So
not good. But anyway, I think Addison here gives them the viable target to take the top off, and now you can sit and cover. You can kind of sit down with Williams and Allen and even Palmer. So, and then the other area where I was really looking at for them was tight end, but like you said earlier, this is a deep draft there, so they can pick up somebody later on.
Yep. So here I am with the Ravens, and I have to put my mindset a little brother. Yes, Baltimore. I'm going to call you that as a Steelers fan. Don't care. The Steelers and Ravens are so identical that, I can make a board for the Steelers and it's going to be the exact same for the Ravens. They just draft the same guys because that's how they're built. So when I look at them, okay, well, what do they need? What players would fit Baltimore? Quinn Johnson fit them at wide receiver. Defensively, there's not as many guys on the board here. Defensively, I feel fit Baltimore as well, where we could be picked. I know a lot of people like Nolan Smith. I'm not the biggest fan of him. There's this guy here, though. He just screams AFC North to me. Siaki Ika. I watch him, And I just think this is a guy that fits a Steelers-Ravens rivalry. Who will he be on? I don't know. But he's someone that just needs to be in that rivalry. He's a big, powerful, strong defensive lineman who's going to cause havoc in the rushing game. He's going to stop the run. And when you look at the AFC North, you got to deal with Nick Chubb, got to deal with Najee Harris, and you got to deal with whoever the Bengals are going to put out there, which they've proven they can run with whoever. So let's get someone that can help certify the rush defense in Siaki Ika.
Not bad, not bad. You also have to worry about how the Ravens' interior defensive line is aging too. So bringing in somebody young, it's a good call.
And he screams AFC North.
He's a big guy, and he's got a lot of athleticism. So yeah, that all the teams like to run. So having a, I don't know if you want to call him a, mountain in the middle, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, makes sense. So on the clock, we have Minnesota. And I don't just see D for defense and their needs. But
well, in their defense, they have 2 edge rushers.
Yes, they do. They also need line help as well. And
a second wide receiver.
And wide receiver help. But I think Christian Gonzalez, I'm going to take him here. They seem to draft DBs like they're going out of style, and I know they've drafted a couple recently. But until you get that position fixed, especially with some of the talent, Detroit was throwing the ball everywhere last year, and so there's quite a few teams that just throw the ball all over the place, and if you can't cover them, you don't even need to show up on Sundays. So
the Giants are gonna be really happy because I'm gonna leave the receivers alone here. I do think Jacksonville should get a receiver, but man, I was talking about him earlier, and I saw how good Trevor Lawrence did with Evan Ingram, who I believe is a UFA. Man, let's get him a young tight end in Dalton Kincaid. And let's not forget, Doug Peterson in Philadelphia had Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz was awesome in his prime. Let's get Dalton Kincaid and let's get him a similar play type, in my opinion. Let's get him the football and have some fun.
So, I can't believe that Quentin Johnston is actually fallen this far. And we're just gonna call for it, because one thing Daniel Jones can do is throw a pretty deep ball. So I think we're just gonna go that way and see if he can light up the back end.
So I have a quick question, and this is because I believe receivers will go off the board much higher than with what we are having here. Do you see a team like the Giants or the Chargers, for example, trade him to get a wide receiver? Because Quentin Johnston would fit the Giants perfectly. I don't expect him to be here come April because receivers are a luxury position that people want now. Would they be a team to trade up and get one, or do you think they'll stay pat at pick 25?
I think it'll depend a lot on how the board's going. If a couple of receivers come off the board, then, they might scramble. Oh, if our guy is still there, we got to get up and get him. The thing is, like lately, and we've talked about this, it seems like the first 3 rounds of receivers are kind of like interchangeable. Maybe the top 2 seem to be breaking out. I mean, Chase was incredible.
Chase wasn't normal.
No, but it just seems like, if you go back a couple years ago and you look, Debo was in the second, and McLaurin was in the second, and DK was in the second, and Brown was in the second.
And Johnson, 3rd round.
Yeah, 30. So, all of these guys, if they're developed properly, are game changers, right? So, wasting draft capital to go up to get a receiver when, and this is going to sound really, really mean, when you think you might have your quarterback, but you don't know, and to waste some draft capital that you might need for upcoming years, I just don't think so.
So I'm going to read off a couple of receivers that were in last year's second round. Christian Watson, pretty good. George Pickens, really good. Like, you can get those guys in the second round. It's not like it just happens once a year. Receivers a very deep position. You can afford a second round pick on them. And correct me if I'm wrong, I've seen it in the past. Receivers have the highest bust rate in the first round. Like, less than get their fifth year option picked up more than less than.
I know that might have been in the past. I'm not sure about now, but I think half of those were, from Detroit.
Hey, they got the best one of my generation.
They did. They did.
That gives them a pass in my lifetime.
Yes.
So here I'm the Cowboys, and I'm not going to pick him, but I would like you to take a second to talk about your theory of who the Cowboys should pick here.
Bijan Robinson, hands down. It's quite simple. Zeke is done. I mean, and he's probably done by like a year and a half, where they should have just let him walk off into the sunset. He's short yardage, if anything at all right now. He's a great back for like third down back if you're not going to put him out, because he still picks up the blitz better than most running backs in the NFL. But other than that, he's costing you so much money, and you're not getting the return on the investment. We don't know how long it's going to be for Pollard to come back. There are varying reports about this is a 3-month injury, this is a 6-month injury, and he's also a free agent. Are you willing to risk spending a ton of money on a player that might not be as good? Because one of the things that is important for Pollard is his shiftiness and his quicks. And if he doesn't come back as strong, even initially, your offense will suffer. Dallas loves to run the ball. That's kind of their identity. Bijan Robinson can run, can catch. He hits the hole hard. He's decent in picking up being a blocker. I just think, honestly, it's kind of a no-brainer for them. And Jerry Jones would love to be able to, with the 26th pick, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, take the best overall player in the draft with Bijan Robinson, because he's going to do something like that. Talent-wise, Bijan is top 5. It's just a matter of positional value, and I disagree with a lot of people about positional values of running backs, but that's here nor there. So if it was me with Dallas right here, Bijan, and walk away.
So, and the reason why I gave you that time is because it's a very fascinating theory. I'm not going to take him here because I do think Dallas has a bigger need. They have CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of nobodies. I'm going to take Zay Flowers. And I know Jack Smith-Njigba is a very popular guy. He's a very talented receiver. I think Zay Flowers would help CeeDee Lamb a lot. CeeDee can play the slot, but he had a great amount of success on the outside last year. You need someone to play in the slot, and Zay Flowers would be that guy.
Well, there you go. Boy, Buffalo went from, if you remember, opening night, nobody can stop this team. They were clicking on all cylinders, and they did everything right. And towards the end of the season, Josh got hurt. They started having players get hurt, and you started to see a lot of flaws in the armor. So they can use defensive line help. They can use offensive line help. They can use secondary help. I think right here, Brian Brzee is, you just go with him. You put him in there, and, he instantly helps solidify. And you got to think about it. team. They gave up a lot of rushing yards. I mean, that's how the Jets came back and beat him that first game. Miami was able to run the ball on them. Cincinnati was able to run the ball on them. They need some interior defensive line help.
So here I am with the Bengals, and I don't really want to go in depth about with what news came out about Joe Mixon and everything. It's just I was questioning them possibly moving on him in the first place. Now I think it's destined.
Just for salary cap?
Yeah, just for salary cap reasons, I think it's destined to happen. I am very anti running backs in the first round unless you have a Super Bowl roster where stuff is filled out. People saying they need tackles. You got to remember, they invested money in their tackles. Jonah Williams, I do think will come back because I think Jonah Williams improved a lot. I know a lot of people are saying he's going to leave. I'm not one of them. I'd like it if he left personally as a Steelers fan. I don't see a lot of holes in this team, which gives me the ability to take a running back in the first round. And as you said, Bijan Robinson has all the talent in the world. Why not take him here? Why not go Bijan Robinson, get that stability at running back for 4 or 5 years with the 5th-year option, or, hey, trade him for some picks when his contract's about to expire, get some assets, and go back and draft another running back. So I'm going to take Bijan Robinson here with the Bengals.
No, that's a good pick.
Here's the thing. He will terrorize me for years if this happens. Terrorize me.
Well, yeah. I was going to kind of tongue in cheek that because, I noticed how you wanted him to go to your beloved Bengals. Sorry, I really just couldn't help that one, but
Well, you want him to go to your beloved Cowboys.
There's a difference. Cowboys aren't in Seattle's, division, whereas you want to play against them twice.
Dude, I deal with Nick Chubb twice a year. I'm used to this.
This is true. So
I'm used to this. The difference is Nick Chubb doesn't have a Joe Burrow.
That is true. Just out of curiosity, how old is Bijan Robinson? Do you know?
Ooh, I actually don't know off the top of my head.
I think.
Oh yeah, and there's one more thing I need to add. Get Bijan Robinson's mustard. It is delicious. That redeems him in my eyes as a running back in the first round.
Well, there you go. No, I like I said, we've talked about this. I think
he will.
A couple weeks.
He just turned 21, so he is still younger.
So young. So technically, you could probably, depending upon the money, you could probably get a second contract out of him. Yeah. So,
or like I said, you could trade him, get some picks when his contract's about to expire.
Yeah. So the pick that nobody wanted,
the slut of the draft.
This pick has been everywhere, from both sides of the continent. It's been everywhere. The Saints need a lot of help. They need, I think, defensive line help. They need offensive line help. They need a quarterback. I see a lot of people taking wide receivers for him, and I don't get that. I'm just going to take Luke Van Ness here. He at this point in time, I think he's a steal, and
he might have gone earlier if I watched him.
He can play outside. He can play inside. He's got a relentless motor, so it'll definitely help them out.
So out of curiosity with the Saints, do you see Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Cameron Jordan, all those guys returning, or do you think some of them will be gone?
I think some of them will be gone. I don't think Michael Thomas will be there. And, the problem with Kamara is he's looking to be facing a pretty hefty suspension. So I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know what the salary cap implications are for him right now, but I would say that, he might be just an outright cut. Alvin Kamara, cap number $16 million. If they cut him, it's $15 million against the cap. If he's a June 1 cut, they only have to pay $662,000.
That's going to happen then.
So I'm thinking after June 1, he's gone.
And that would be right around when we get suspended too, if a suspension was coming.
Yeah. So I think he's a June 1 cap cut.
Yeah. Man, this is hard though. Here I am with the Chiefs. Juju Smith-Schuster's UFA. I'd like to see them bring him back as a Juju fan. I love watching him play Pat Mahomes. There's this guy staring at me in Jack Smith and Jigba, and it's killing me to say, no, I can't take you. Because this is my dream pick. This is the number one pick I want to see happen. I want to see Darnell Washington go to the Chiefs. Travis Kelce's getting there up there in age. Believe it or not, he will slow down at some point. And rookie tight ends tend to not do much their first year, maybe even their first 2 years. Why not get a guy, develop him? Because he is a ball of clay. He is a freak athlete. He's a big, strong dude. Why not let Andy Reid play with something like that and get potentially the next great tight end just to follow the great tight end in the NFL right now?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. I guess PFF has just decided that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Is that how this is?
This is just based off records, I believe.
Yeah, I know. I was being sarcastic. So with this pick, the Eagles have thrown some stuff into their defensive line with Myles Murphy. The other side of the other part of the defense that they're going to need to address is in the secondary. And if they would have taken anybody but Murphy, I might have done this because I think Ringo has a higher upside than Forbes does, but I think Forbes is a more sure prospect. So I think they're going to take Emmanuel Forbes here. And, he kind of fits the mold of what they like to use.
Yeah, and do you have any thoughts about maybe taking Will McDonald or just some other guys? Because they do have a lot of free agents on the front seven.
Well, oh gosh, yeah, I looked. I love Will McDonald. I also like Nolan there as well. So there's quite a few guys there. Their interior, you could look at. Excuse me. You could look at a lot of other places on the interior. Benton, he's good. I just think that in the secondary, they're potentially going to lose two.
Chauncey
but
and Bradbury.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they can sign Bradbury at all. So.
I don't think they can sign Chauncey.
What's that?
I don't think they can sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well.
Well, I don't think they can sign him as well. They kind of went all in on this year,
Hey, it's worked.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're in the Super Bowl, right? So, I mean, you can say what you want, but it did work. So
here's a question, because we had Van Ness at 29, and odds are he will not be here come April. But in a situation like this, do you see the Eagles trying to trade up to get Van Ness? Because they have been very aggressive. Howie Roseman's a very aggressive GM. When there's a guy he likes, he will trade up and get him. So could you see them trading up and double dipping game Myles Murphy and Van Ness in a situation like this?
Oh, I totally could. They're definitely not afraid to do that. It seems I would not be surprised though if they didn't take that 10th pick and trade down, acquire more picks, and then because that seems to be what they do, they trade down and then they trade back up. So. I mean, if you want to look at just the draft in general, I'd say Chicago premium candidate to trade down. Seattle premium candidate to trade down. Honestly, the Lions, I can see the Lions trading down too. And then when you get down to it, I can see the Eagles trading down. The Patriots always trade down. To be quite honest, we don't know what's going to happen with the Jets pick, but I mean, they could potentially trade down as well. The sad part for me is that 12 to like 16, 17 range. I just think that's kind of like a muddy area in the
No man's
draft.
land.
Yeah, I do. So I think I'm not sure a lot of teams are going to be willing wanting to trade up there unless the draft falls in the way that they need it to. So
So you just listed off a bunch of teams that would trade down, even in the top 10. Who could you see trading up in the top 10 specifically?
trading up into the top 10.
Trading up the top 10 or a team in the top 10, maybe try and go top 5 to get a guy.
Well, I can definitely see. Uh, I can definitely see Atlanta. I can see Carolina. The sleeper that nobody has talked about, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh, what if the Lions just say, I want Young or I want Stroud?" They've got two picks.
Would the Bears do that, though?
Probably not. But in that same respect,
They have a lot of
you know,
holes.
the Bears have a lot of holes. And if they can get two first rounds in this plus like another first round, next year, three first rounds, I mean, they might consider it, you know. Uh, I'm still not 100% sure that Houston's going to take a quarterback.
Nah, I think that's pretty much set.
So, we'll see. This is going to be a pretty interesting draft. Outside of 10, you asked about that really quick. I can see the Titans trading up a, a bit. I can't see them trading from like 11 to 1 or 11 to 2, say. But I can see Washington trying to get into the top 10. Uh, I do not see the Bucks trying to trade up to 3. Just saying.
Should we address that real quick? I can't remember his name, but it was a guy from CBS Sports, and his mock draft had the Bucks train up all the way from 19 to 3 to take Will Levis.
The amount of compensation for that is insane.
Would it top the Ricky
And
Williams trade?
well, the sad part about it is though the Bucks have so many holes everywhere else. You're literally going to be putting Will Levis out there with nothing. And didn't he just do that in Kentucky this year? And he didn't go well. So
I thought it went great.
yes, but I just don't see that happening.
Well, that's going to do us for this week. I don't know if we'll do another mock draft public till after Wednesday, or maybe after the scouting combine. We'll figure it out in that time, but this is kind of where our brains are at right now. Like I said, there's some guys you have to watch. There's some guys you have to watch, and this is incomplete in my mind because we're still at the point that we're just learning all these guys. What can they do? What scheme do they fit? Where would they be the best at? Or what position can they change? Can a guy from a 3-4 go to a 4-3, or can a guy at offense tackle move into guard? The one guy we have can say yes about is Cody right now because we saw him dominate the Senior Bowl. But there's still
I
so many.
think
Go ahead.
I think that's one of the most important things that you said there was that scheme fits. And when I look at a lot of these mock drafts, I look at them and well, okay, so this is the player that's next on my board and I'm going to plug him in right here. But a lot of times it's not a scheme fit. It doesn't work. You're trying to put a 3-4 interior defensive lineman into a 4-3 set, and you're trying to expect him to do something completely different from what he was good at in college. And then we label these guys as busts because we drafted them so high, thinking, oh well, they can do this. And I think that's just that's something that we talk about it every year. And well, God, he was a high draft pick, and he went here and he sucked, and then he went here and he was really good. Well, it's because he was used in the way that he played in college, and unfortunately, cornerbacks. If a guy's a good press corner, sometimes he's not a good zone corner, and if he's a good zone corner, a lot of times he's not a good press corner, right? But I've seen this guy play, and so I'm going to put him into that situation, and then they fail. Defensive linemen are the same thing. guards, it's tough. I think that I liked what you said there because I think it's super important for everybody to understand that they need to fit the scheme that you want them to play in, not just because you think they're the best player there.
100%. And here's the thing. We don't know every coach is going to be hired yet. That's another big thing. We don't know what the Cardinals will be running defensively. Who knows? Maybe they're going to want Devin Witherspoon at 3. We don't know who the Colts...
Maybe they're going to want Will Levis at 3.
Yeah. We don't know who the Colts are hiring. Maybe they like a different quarterback. We don't know, and there are uncertainties. And I will still say this. We do not have a good idea until April 1st. That's when we have a good idea when the draft starts going. So maybe we'll do an April Fool's mock draft where we'll just do foolish picks for fun. But that's right around the time that you get the sense of where teams are going to be looking at. Because right around that point, you can go to the big guys. And the number one guy I always rely on if I'm reading a mock draft of who knows something, who knows scheme fits, who knows everything is Daniel Jeremiah. He's always my default guy to go to because I trust him the most because he takes all that into account. His mock drafts are usually pretty spot on. But that's going to do us for this week. I'm sure next week we'll have a Super Bowl recap. There's not much to preview unless, hey, do you want to give your Super Bowl pick real quick? Who you think's going to win?
Philadelphia.
So he's going to take Philadelphia. I have one rule. Don't bet against Pat Mahomes. And it's a pretty good rule. But that's going to do us for this. We'll talk about the Super Bowl next week. I'm sure we'll be talking more about draft prospects because Scouting Combine's coming up. Free agency's coming up as well. Got a lot to talk about and a lot of contracts possibly talk about. And hopefully some head coaching news in Arizona and Indianapolis. But thank you very much for tuning in and have a great day and have a great Super Bowl Sunday.